Okay, I've been asked a bunch of times since the last time I tried to maximize a nodule of Obsidian, so that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to see if I can maximize the yield from this. This is kind of a gnarly nodule, and it's probably what many would consider Dacite and not Obsidian. Alright, so let's take a good look at the outside of it. It's pretty typical of stuff you find on the surface that other people don't want to use because it's got a lot of defects, it looks like. We'll see. Is there a general strategy for maximizing it? Well, there is if you have something exact in mind. What are you looking for exactly? Most new guys say they want the biggest biface possible. That's what they're looking for. Exactly. The biggest biface possible out of the worst piece possible. Because to them, and to everybody else, that's the maximum yield for your money. You buy a bad looking piece for cheap, and you make a big blade out of it. That maximizes your money. Right? If you maximize the Obsidian or the Dacite, you maximize your money. Or your return on your investment, I should say. This one had a natural crack in it. It turns out. So we got two nodules, basically. Now, I didn't see that coming. Although I probably could have if I had looked at it a little bit longer. Probably could have, I could have said, nah, that looks like it'll crack there, but I didn't see the crack on this side. Okay, so we got two nodules. It's a little bit easier now to see where the bifaces could be. Four and a half inches. And this way it's 4.5 inches. Let's see. I remembered this time. Let's see. 1 pound, 7.7. Yeah. 1 pound, 7.7 ounces. Okay, so here, let's see what we got. We got a good little piece. All these other ones are a little bit too small. Some of you might want to see me make an arrowhead out of really tiny flakes, but I've got videos on that already. So just do a search, and if you do a search for like Jack Crafty flake point or flake arrowhead or something like that, it might come up. If you have trouble finding stuff, just ask me and I'll see if I can give you a direct link. And I've been asked to do parallel flaking. Just look up Edbo 23 parallel flaking. Edbo. EDBO 23. That's all one word. Edbo 23. And then after that, type in parallel flaking. He's got a pretty good video that he made a long time ago. Saved me the trouble of trying to do some parallel flaking before I'm ready. Yeah, you can watch that video over and over. It's a good one. It's well worth it. So I tried to do the smart thing by trying to cut this in half, but it took a dive, which is pretty typical of easy to knap material. It takes a dive. Am I trying to maximize it? Yeah, I am trying to maximize it. I just cut off an inch because it dove. Now see, it wasn't very deep, and there was no indication that it would actually dive. It's supposed to continue, but you know how it goes. The rock has a mind of its own sometimes. Now, a lot of guys will say, well, there's got to be a way to maximize this stuff, because you can't just be going at it. Or they'll say, I just can't be going at it and mess it up, so I got money on the line. They'll tell me in a roundabout way, but they'll tell me I can't afford to do stuff like you just did right there. I can't afford that at all. It has to be perfect. I got to be able to see how you do it in a perfect way. That way I can learn how to do it in a similar way. That's what new guys will surmise, or will have in their thought experiment in their brain. Well, I've got money on the line too. This stuff's not free for me. I can't always expect people to send me free stuff. Sometimes I order the stuff. And yeah, sometimes I break in half the stuff that I order. If you want to maximize these bulky nodules like this, and try to make bifaces out of them, and try to get the biggest number of, or the largest number of big flakes from here, you're not going to be able to do it as a new guy, because I have trouble doing it as a 10-year experienced guy. I can't teach you that because I still don't know how to do it, and I've been doing it 10 years or more. I know. You don't want to hear that. You just want to see the results. Everyone's an exception. Yeah. Everyone wants to be the exception. They don't want to be the new guy that's like everybody else. Yeah, I know. A lot of times, it's not your fault. You just ask for stuff that can't be done. Sometimes these things have cracks in them that you get for cheap or for free. You don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You just say, yep, I'll take it if it's free. Or if Mother Nature gives it to you because it's on the surface and it's kind of dicey, but hey, you can try to make something out of it. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth if it's free, or if it's available on the surface. A lot of times you can't maximize it the way you want. Yeah. Now, if you get really expensive obsidian and it's a perfect big old piece and you paid a lot of money for it, how do you break those down and maximize that? You wait until you're a better napper. That's how you maximize those. Spend $150 or $200 on big, huge nodule, and you want to make a 14-inch blade. Wait till you're a better napper. Don't do it when you're new. Save that. It's an investment. You can knock off flakes and stuff if you want to make little arrowheads every once in a while. But I'm not going to spend $150 on one nodule and then just do a video on it. Because on most of my videos, I can make maybe, let's see, maybe $20 on the video from my AdSense, from advertising. It'll be like $20 up front, and then it'll start trickling off, and I only make a few bucks a month on it. So it'll take forever for me to get paid back to invest a whole bunch of money in a piece of stone just for a video. So yeah, I have done it though. I have done it, but I got to be able to do two things at once with the stone, you know, which I have been able to do. I'm lucky. I have been able to sell stuff that I make on video. So I'm trying to figure out how to maximize this with all the defects. See, it's got an internal flaw. And all you can do is just make sure you're striking good areas to get good flakes. I don't recommend tapping all the way around and keep tapping and tapping and trimming and trimming. I recommend finding a good spot that looks like you can remove a good flake. Develop that striking area so it's dull enough, but not too dull. Sculpt the striking area. I don't like calling them platforms before you strike off a flake. I like to call it a striking area. And then once the flake is removed, you can see where the platform is. The platform is on the flake. It's not really on the biface. It's a striking area where you strike. And then after the flake comes off, then you can look and see what the platform looks like. That's why I call it a striking area, because you have options. There's no real set platform there. Yeah, I can see where I can hit, but it may not be ideal. I could have hit here instead of there. I could do all kinds of things. I could rearrange it a little bit, re-sculpt it, make it more continuous. I could try to isolate. There's no set thing. If I start trying to say that this is a platform, that's a platform, that's a platform, you get into the mentality that it's a set thing. No, it's very fluid. It's very open to modification. You don't even have to hit those areas if you don't want to. Yeah, just be open to different possibilities. And once you strike the flake off, that's what I call a platform. Okay? To me, when I'm doing this, platform is part of the flake. It's not part of the biface. Okay. So when you're setting up platforms, what you're doing is you're setting up the striking area. In other words, a lot of knappers will say, set up the platform. And I say that too. I get, you know, I still use the old terminology. Set up the platform and strike it. But I prefer the term striking area. So I'm starting to use that more and more. Alright, so there seems to be no major defects now. So what is this? It's about 3. Okay. So this would be a quarry blank. It looks usable. It looks like there's no major defects. It looks like I can get a point out of it. 3.7 or no, 3.2. 3.2 ounces. So from nodule to usable biface, you guys can do the math, and I can do the math too. After the video is over and I review it, I can do the math on that and give you a percentage of yield for a quarry blank or a trade blank or a biface, whatever you want to call this. It's all bifaces. If it's more than 60% napped on both sides, it's biface in my view, under my definition. Unifacial is if it's 60% or more of the original surface of the flake or spall or nodule. You can have bifacial and unifacial, right? Like let's say this is a spall, right? And I nap it down, but I don't touch this area. It's all napped everywhere else. This is more than 60% of the surface area of the biface. That's part of the original spall. That would be a unifacial. A uniface. I mean, not a unifacial, but a uniface instead of a biface. For those of you who don't know, I tried to take a long nap today and I think I felt worse. I'm dragging my butt around today. Although I did a lot. Okay, so what am I going to do with this? Since everyone wants to see a rock to point type situation. Let's see. Got my gaiters on. These are just simple leather. It's got Velcro. I might put a little strap underneath so to keep these things, you know, strap, attach it here and to go underneath to hold it in place because they tend to shift. We'll see. All right, so what are we going to do? Well, from here we can thin it down. We can thin it down. I can thin it down a little bit more with the billet, but I've got to be very, very careful. Now this stuff feels just like plastic, and I'm not sure. This might be California stuff. Yeah. It's the kind of Dacite that feels like plastic. There's some that feels kind of rough. This is very slippery and smooth. And it doesn't have that, it doesn't seem to have the same kind of ring as chert does. Although I think if I get it really thin, it'll develop a tonal quality. How's that? Okay, let's see. Yeah, extremely easy to nap. I don't need much force at all. See, if I put too much force into it, like that looked like a really good striking area, but it was too good, so it took a bite out of it. Very, very easy to do that, which is not really advantageous. Bites are mistakes. You know, these kind of bites, they're mistakes. A lot of times you can live with it, but it's not something you want. Yeah, I'm going to switch over to indirect percussion here because the billet is a little bit too aggressive for this stone. Even though it's easy. I mean, I could sit here and make little bifaces like this with the billet all day. I would not get that tired. It's pretty easy. Yeah, it just snaps so easily. It spoils you. Yep. It spoils you and you think you can do a lot with a simple tool. And then it'll creep up on you and it'll be very steppy. And you won't know what's going on. And you won't be able to do the damage control because it's already too thin. Yep. So make sure you don't thin it out too much, just gradually. 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 Give yourself a little bit of space, a little bit of meat in there so you can remove a step fracture if there is one that develops. There's one in there right now. That's not too bad. I can get that. Alright, so that's about as far as I want to go with the billet. Hopefully we got that on film. If it was chert, I'd go a little bit further, but this stuff is very snappity. Snap in half easily. Yeah, it's one of those days where you get a lot of sleep, but it doesn't feel like you've slept. That means I must have lost a lot of sleep in the past several days. It's caught up with me. Well, you know, I go to bed relatively early tonight. Hopefully. I don't even know what time it is. All I know is the dogs are not barking anymore because the neighbor dog is inside. Probably. Okay. Alright, here we go. This is not a good glove for this. Let's see. Where's my other glove? It's better. My other glove is better. Where is it? There it is. It only has a little bitty hole. That's better. I could put tape on it. Or I can just go 5 minutes down the road. Literally, I got a Harbor Freight 5 minutes down the road. I can just pick up a pair of $6 gloves. Although I got some coming in the mail. Yeah. Some generous channel supporters are sending me some. So, let's see. Am I going to reduce this with steel? Yes, I am. Is it steel good for Obsidian and Dacite? No, I don't recommend it. Why am I using it? Because I like it. Low maintenance. You know how guys like stuff that's low maintenance. Yeah. Anything low maintenance is cool. It's good. Yep. Beautiful stuff. You can plan on long flakes. That's the beauty of this stuff. My goodness. Being able to plan on doing long flakes. Yeah. All the rules of flake length measurements go out the window because sometimes you can just run incredible flakes on this stuff. Yeah. So it's an exception to the rule. You can try long flakes with Obsidian, but with chert, you gotta watch it. Chert doesn't like it when you get too cocky and want to do the long flake thing. Just because it looks right. Just because it looks like you can do that with Obsidian doesn't mean you can do that with chert. Oh no. It doesn't translate or doesn't carry over. It's a different ball game. Some guys like the change. They like napping different materials and changing it up because it reduces boredom. I agree. Changing it up does reduce boredom, but it also increases your waste. You're going to waste more material. You're not going to be able to maximize it. So if you're a new guy and you are switching materials and yet you want to maximize everything, you're going to have a hard time. Yep. Hard time. Best way to maximize your stone is to stick with the same stone. And Do the same shapes over and over again. Get good at doing the same shapes. Just like the old ways. That's the old ways. Stick with the same shape. Do it over and over and over again. And then you'll learn to maximize. Eventually you will become more efficient. Just like the old guys. Doing the same point type over and over again with very little deviation in the long run creates less waste. Now I've said that creating a specific size produces more waste because the nodule sizes are variable. Yeah, the actual size, the actual length of the point and that kind of stuff is less important in the overall design. But yeah, it's true. That's the exception, you know. If you're very rigid on size, too rigid on size, you're going to waste more than you conserve because the nodules are chaotic and variable and random. If you go with the flow as far as length, depending on the size of the nodule, you'll be better off. Yeah. But when you retain the basic shape, you still gain efficiency because it's easier for you to see where you can fit the piece into the nodule, what you need to remove, and end up not breaking it. So yeah, not breaking it is a very important thing. If you have a clear picture of what your nodule can give you and you know what shape is going to be, and you've done it many times before, there's less chance of breaking it. Less chance of making mistakes too. Yep. So when you look in the archaeological record, there is a variability in size. More so than the shape. The shape is pretty standardized. You know, the stem shape and the blade shape, they get pretty standardized. It's just the overall size it's different in many cases. Now there are some point types that are very, very consistent in size and length and all that, as well as the shape. You are going to waste material when doing that. But if that's what you want to reproduce, then that's what you got to deal with. It's just part of the deal in that case. So why all this talk about maximizing? I get a lot of questions on that. And I get questions just out of the blue. What's my advice on trying to get big blades out of impossible stuff? What's the strategy? What's the advice? How can I explain, or please explain how to get the most out of something that's not very easy to get the most out of? Well, be very familiar with the shape that you're trying for. Make sure you've done it before. Don't just start trying to make a 12-inch blade. I think you're going to be maximizing if you've never made one that size before. You get a few under your belt, you kind of know what you're into, what you're getting into. You'll be better off attempting to maximize once you know what you're getting into. Once you waste a bunch of material, in other words. So I don't know what to tell guys that ask me what's the best strategy to maximize, other than wait until you're a better napper. Yeah. But that's the opposite of what they need to hear. Yeah. Or what they think they need to hear. Okay. I won't talk too much about that. What else can we talk about? I have to be very, very careful on this because I could snap it at any point, at any time. This could snap in half because I'm going to be napping this till I can't get it any thinner. I'll nap it to the edge of my ability. So I gotta focus. We still got barkings. I can't call this video a no bark. Dum dum dog. I have no idea. I can't hear anything else. Unless it's cats that he's barking at. Now what I'm doing here is I'm planning on removing some of these step fractures. There's some weirdness going on there. I don't know what caused that. You know, I'm trying to make these terminations feather out. This side's pretty good, right? But this side, it may be because it's too flat. You need a little bit of convexity to get these flakes to run well. It could be that it's too flat. Could be that there's some internal defects. Could be that I'm just not preparing the striking area well. I'm losing power in the strike, causing the flakes to not travel. Bad shot placement. Yeah, shooting the flakes in bad ways and from a bad vantage point, or there might be a better way to strike it. All these things, yeah. I think this is too lumpy. I'm gonna smooth it out. I'm not making good contact with the edge. How can I tell? Well, when I have a good striking area and the flake doesn't come off, something's up. It would appear that I don't have a good contact with the edge. Yeah, I think that's better. I don't see much daylight between the edge and the tip of the tool. If I end up seeing a lot of daylight between the edge of the workpiece and the tip of the tool, it's not making solid contact. So if I put this on the edge and I see daylight, like this one's lumpy, this end is lumpy, right? If I put it on the edge, the lumps prevent the firm contact. See how there's daylight between the tip and the edge. Now I'm exaggerating, but that's what happens with lumps. That's not a good striking area. It's got to be resting on the surface, and you can't see too much daylight there. That's why I smooth it out. That's why I smooth out the tip of the tool. And also why I smooth out and grind down the edge. Not just to make it stronger, but to reduce the amount of daylight between the tool tip and the workpiece. I don't think I've discussed that too much. That one particular detail, I do discuss making good contact with the edge, but I take it for granted that people know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Now, I've said sometimes that it's possible to make too good of a contact with the edge and end up applying too much force. Yes, that's also possible. You have to have the cumulative experience of many thousands of hits to know the difference. Yep. Yeah, it's the Goldilocks effect. You have to have a lot of experience to achieve the Goldilocks effect. Not too hard, not too soft. The edge not too strong or too weak. It has to be just right. The Goldilocks effect. Very common thing in knapping. So is this as thin as I can possibly go? No, it's not as thin as I can possibly go. Yeah. But it's starting to get dicey. See that? It's starting to get to where I can't avoid the mistakes. When it gets to that point, I've got to back off. And that could be just bad edge preparation. Although that does happen. See, it's a crack. It's not just a cone, it's also a radial crack. Radial means it's going in like this. The fracture plane is going like this. The fracture plane doesn't scoop it out. It's going in like that. On that side. See, it's supposed to scoop it out. When I hit, it's supposed to scoop that out. But sometimes it'll create a radial fracture. It goes in this way, and you get that mess right there. When you start getting that mess, or when I do, that's a sign that I need to back off. Except I'm going to take another big flake here. Yeah, I'll back off in a minute. Yeah. See, that got it a little bit thinner. Just a little bit thinner. I'm going to pressure flake that right there. See where I'm at. So you can see where I'm pressure flaking? Yep, okay. Does that crack go in very far? It seems to, yes. Just keep removing material until it goes away, hopefully. Hit it with the abrader. Or with the hammerstone, or whatever. I did get some antler to make tools with. Ta-da! Whitetail. This is going to be a billet. And I haven't decided if I'm going to keep that brow tine on there. Probably not. But it's a good pressure flaker if you do leave it on there. It can be a pressure flaker / billet. This one is going to be a pressure flaker right there with that brow tine. I'll just cut this part off here and make it one of my pistol grip looking things, pressure flakers. This one I haven't decided what I'm going to do with it yet. I might just cut it into sections and then cut out tool tips for this kind of stuff, little pressure flakers. This is thick enough here where I can make almost a 1/4 inch diameter tool tip like this out of the antler, you know, saw it and sand it and make some tool tips for pressure flakers. What about my indirect percussion? I don't have a big enough, well, let's see. I was using this for indirect percussion on a couple of points recently, but it's too curved. Yeah. It's not that comfortable. Or effective when it's curved. All right. So what am I going to do? I'm going to pressure flake with a rounded tip. Yeah, it doesn't work that great. It works all right. I gotta really grind it down for the rounded tip. For the spatula tool, it doesn't need to be ground down that much. But for the rounded tip, the advantage of the rounded tip is I can drive flakes a little bit further. As long as the edge is ground down and it doesn't crush when I try to push a flake off. So you'll notice that I'm not crushing. It's not doing this. Hear all that crushing? When I take a flake off, I try to minimize the crushing. Part of that is with a braiding. Strengthen the edge. Part of it is how I'm holding the flaker and on what area I'm actually pushing on. I gotta make sure I'm pushing on an area that won't crush. And it can still crush even though you've ground it down. Yep. But you won't know what to do unless you've hit this thing 1,000 times. I'm using indirect percussion because I can get a bigger flake more easily. I can get big flakes with pressure, but it just requires a lot of pressure force to get something like that. It's almost impossible with pressure. Same striking area with pressure and percussion. I mean, I've been looking at it for years, trying to see if there's a big difference between the percussion striking area and a pressure striking area, and I don't see much difference at all. In fact, if you just make them the same way, you'll be in good shape. I suppose there can be subtle differences, especially if you're using a big hammerstone or a big billet. There is differences in the way you create the striking area, because obviously when you're dealing with a big fat tool, you're going to need a big fat isolated striking area, or that tool is just going to hit everywhere on the edge, places you don't want it to hit. This can be thinned down a lot, but the risk of strep fractures is very great. See that? It doesn't feather. The terminations don't feather out when you're working with something that's way too flat. Yeah, that's way too flat. Now, can I pick that out? Probably. I can probably pick that out, but it depends on what I'm making. If I put a concave base in here, I can shoot a flake up into there. May end up doing a concave base just so I can get that out of there. Yeah. So I'm just sneaking in some flakes wherever I can to get more thinness. Just sneaking them in there. I was going to do the sneaking with the pressure, but percussion's so much less fatiguing. I'm trying to... Once I try to... Once it's starting to not cooperate with my sneakings, I gotta stop. I gotta back off. See that? Yeah, that's my fault. I didn't abrade the edge, I don't think. I lost some power in the strike and it created a step fracture where if it had more power behind the strike and more contact, it would have driven that flake a little further and thinned it. Yeah. Yeah, see, it's starting to act up. So I reached the maximum of my capacity, of my capability. Yeah. Once I start not doing any good, that's it. Maxed out. Now I gotta fix it. Okay. That tool tip was a little bit too small, it seems. I was trying to do minute flakes, but it didn't work out. So go back to more bold looking flakes with a larger percussion tip. Yeah, it doesn't look that great. So I got to go back to fixing that whole edge. Everything on that side, both sides, it needs to be fixed. The edge, the surface, everything. So I'm regularizing it so the next pass will be a lot more regular. Funny how that works. So I'm going to zone out. I got to pay attention because this next pass is critical. Okay, so I think it looks a little bit better. Not too much better, but it looks a little bit better. I still have a defect right there. And there was nothing wrong with your TV. I just zoned out there. Don't adjust the dials or the settings. We're in the twilight zone. Okay. It's asymmetrical. So you know what that means. Got to use our special Flintknapping word. We got to symmetritize it. And put on the other glove before I inject myself with a piece of this Dacite. Although this glove is not that great. That's right where I inject myself. Let's see, that's better. Okay. Alright, so let's get out the big old spatula tool. This is a bigger one. Let's put some notches and stuff like that. I'm going to continue to symmetritize it for a minute. Good enough. I'm going to put a concave base. No, I don't need to. I sent in a flake from the side. I pretty much cleared out the center. But I do need to flatten the base for what I think I'm going to make. Flakes going everywhere. It's kind of thick on the edge, isn't it? Look at that thick spot. Yeah, it's pretty bad. That's what happens when you quickly reduce one of the edges. It gets thick. So now it's much thinner. Gotta thin down the other edge. Thin down the thick spots. Just pop out flakes. Try not to be too crunchy about it. All right. Corner notches. Corner notches. And extreme barbs. How's that? That's what this stuff is good for, right? Extreme barbs. So that's what we're gonna do. Seems like I'm doing a lot of grinding, huh? Yep. I gotta pop those pop outs. I gotta pop out those pop outs. They need a well-ground surface to pop out those pop outs. Yeah, that didn't work. Not much thickness there, so you can't pop it out. There you go. It seems counterintuitive, but you need some thickness in there to pop those out. If it's too thin, it just crunches. Yeah, and I found out, someone told me about the crunch and munch. Yeah. I have forgotten about the crunch and munch. I think I messed up this barb. Yeah, crunch and munch. We used to have crunch and munch at the movie theater, right? I think that's where it is. That's where I got it from. Goobers, Raisinets, and crunch and munch. Yeah. My mom used to take us to the theater a lot, into drive-ins when I was little, obviously. And my favorite was the vampire movies, so whenever a vampire movie would come out, she'd take me and my sister, and eventually my sisters. I have two younger sisters. Anyway, we would go to the theater to watch the Dracula movie or the vampire movie. And we'd always get, well, I always wanted to get the Goobers or Raisinets and the Crunch and Munch. And the Cracker Jack. Didn't always do it. Didn't always get stuff. Because my mom would say it's too expensive. Too expensive. Yeah. I think that's where the Crunch and Munch was hanging out. I could be wrong. It could be the store-bought only. There was these jelly beans too in the concession stand back in those days. There's a special name for the jelly beans too. forgot what they are. Yeah, it's getting dicey. I'm starting to push my luck with these pop outs. Why? Because it can snap across the neck now. Once the neck gets narrow, you know, you get a pencil neck, you can snap it. Yep, that's what happens. You snap them pencil necks pretty easy. Yep. Yeah, but notching is so much easier with this stuff than with anything else. Once you get the hang of it, some people say, no, it's not easy notching this stuff because I always break it. Yeah. But once you get used to it, you can notch for days and days with this stuff. I'm not going to push my luck. I'm just going to sharpen it. Call it good. I could put some serrations in it. I could. Am I gonna? I'm feeling pretty good about it right now. I don't know if I want to mess it up. I don't know if I want to mess with a good thing here. Yes, serrations can be dangerous to install. Because there is a possibility that you could mess one up and it looks all weird and wonky. Especially with this stuff. You can break off a serration and it looks all weird and wonky. And then what do you do? You can't unweirdify it. You can try to do damage control on it. What are you going to do? Make it just as wonky on the other side for symmetry? It's not that good of an idea. It's not a very good strategy. Two wonkies don't make a symmetry. Yeah. What's he talking about wonkies? Yeah, what am I doing talking about wonkies? Yeah. I don't know. All kinds of weird things can happen when you're talking about symmetry. Yeah, that's good enough for edge, right? It's thin. Oh, it's got some thick spots. I just spotted one. Just when I was trying to show you how thin it was, I saw a thick spot. Gotta do a pop out. It's not letting me. Let's inspect that edge again. There's a thick spot somewhere around there. Near the tip right there. Yeah, it's kind of wonky. Anyway, right there. Let's get it trimmed down a little bit and then re-chip it. Install some pop outs and let's see. Yeah, it's good enough. Other side. It's really wonky. It's hard to tell if it's sharp just by eye when you are doing it by eye. If the edge is wonky, if it's all out of whack, then it's hard to tell by eye. You have to do by feel or look at the edge this way and see if it's got any thick spots. And this way, this is the way I usually do it. I can tell if there's a thick spot, but it's not as easy as looking at the edge this way. You know, this edge seems to be thin, but it's not that thin. Could be a little thinner. And I could get rid of some of this nastiness right there. It's a stiff fracture right here. Not like that. Is it doing anything? The only thing it's doing is ruining the edge. Stop messing with it. It's very difficult to sharpen an edge on an obsidian or dacite. Believe it or not. Is that a point style? No. Should be. It fits on the little dart foreshaft really well. Yep. Plenty of room for the glue. Plenty of room for the wrappings. The depth is really good. It's got a lot of room because this is the thick type of lattice dart foreshaft. Alright, so here we go. I think that's it. I'm going to stop messing with it. I was going to put some serrations in here, but nah. Nah, I've got serrations videos. Got a bunch of them. I'm tired. And it's already an hour. Imagine that. I stayed up late to do the video and I still got some barking, but it wasn't too bad on this video. Okay. Let's see. Let's get a big clean up here so we can go for the thumbnail. Let's see. Yeah, it's good to have a change of pace, you know. I do like napping this stuff once in a while in between the chert and raw stuff. Difficult, unpredictable. You know, the last one is the napping the unpredictable. These are two different ball games, so much different. It's unbelievable how different these are. Except when it comes to sharpening the edge, they're actually pretty similar. It's just harder on this because it breaks so easily. And it crushes so easily. Alright. There you go. Ooh. Excuse me. That's it.